have the guy joining us today, Tailgate Ted. Hopefully he's been able to enjoy a little bit of this Commanders offseason despite this first wave of free agency just wrapping up. Ted, always good to see you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, always great to see you too, Natalie. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I love sitting down with you because not only do you have a great perspective yourself on everything Washington Commanders, you also have a great perspective of what this fan base is like. And that's truly where I wanted to begin with free agency. How well do you think Adam Peters, Dan Quinn attacked this first wave? And of course, your thoughts, but also how is the fan base feeling about this first wave as well?
From my perspective, I'm happy with what Adam Peters did. I mean, he has the benefit of the doubt for quite some time, considering what he was able to do after fixing kind of the Rivera mess that was left with us. To win 14 games last year when we were, quote unquote, recalibrating. I mean, no one thought we would make it to the NFC Championship game. I don't care how big a fan you are, you didn't think that that was going to be possible. So, with everything he has done so far, considering how bad a free agency class it was, there weren't really a lot of top name guys out there. He's been able to orchestrate four new starters for this team. And there are a lot of pundits out there that have actually given Adam Peters the best grade out of all 32 teams in free agency.
I love it. Yeah,
Now,
there's a ton of new names and new guys that people and fans will have to be acquainted with come the regular season. But let's talk about some of them. Some big names were the Deebo Samuel trade. You got Larry Tunzel, you got Javon Kinlaw. So those were some of the big names. But there was a lot of guys that were added to this roster, whether they were well-known names or not. Are there a few that stand out, or a guy or two that you're specifically excited about?
one in particular that my co-host Rally Captain and I were talking about in our latest podcast was Will Harris, signing him to a 2-year deal, specifically because of his relationship with Marshawn Lattimore. I feel that losing Jeremy Chin is definitely upsetting for a lot of the fan base, but knowing that Will and Marshawn have that relationship, they've got that rapport and that comfortability with each other. It's not strong to say that people were a little upset with Marshawn's really performance on the field, even though we got him and he was banged up. We just didn't see a lot out of him when they made that trade. So I'm hoping having someone in that defensive backfield with him is just going to elevate his play even more this upcoming year.
I want to jump back to when you said, the trust for Adam Peters, because it's fun watching a lot of these players get introduced in these press conferences this week and be introduced to the DC area, because all of them are kind of saying the same thing in terms of they wanted to be here. That's exactly, what sold them on coming to Washington. They have trust in Dan Quinn and Adam Peters. And that's, of course, not something that's always been said when it comes to players coming to DC.
No, definitely not. I mean, the NFLPA grades that came out a couple months ago, I mean, to go from how lowly we were rated to what they are now. And I mean, Tress Way yesterday, I mean, to sign the 1-year deal to come back and saying they had music playing, I mean, all of the staff and everyone there to welcome him. And he's been here for 12 years to have never had an experience like that where he knows how bad it's been. I mean, I'd say he's the longest tenured Washington player on this team. He's lived through 3 name changes, just like all of the fan base, right? And you hear the word culture, and I feel like it's thrown out a lot, and it doesn't mean a lot because it's used so much. I mean, we heard it so much during the Rivera regime, but it actually means something now when you hear it come from these players, when you hear it come from Dan Quinn and Adam Peters, because they're putting their money where their mouth is. And they're really showing with their actions what it means to be a commander. And that's why Josh Harris said it himself that, the name is staying because commanders mean something to this team and these players and these coaches. And to a lot of the fan base, not a majority, but a lot of the fan base. And hopefully the rest of those will just jump on board as well.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking off of that, re-signing certain guys, a Bobby Wagner, Zach Ertz, Marcus Mariota, those guys who I'm going to throw the culture word out there. They came in and kind of built it a little bit from the ground up based on their experiences elsewhere and, the veteran leadership that they have themselves. I mean, how important was it to bring those guys back?
I'd say bringing back Bobby Wagner was the most important signing, if not second most, that they have done so far this offseason. I mean, he is a Hall of Famer, an all-pro, Pro Bowl player. And the guys look up to him. They respect him. They see the grind and the work he puts in.
You mentioned Jaden Daniels, and before I let you go, this is where I kind of want to end it because we have the NFL draft coming up. You were in Detroit last year when you saw Jaden walk across the stage. It was such a momentous moment that I don't think anyone really realized how big that moment was because of everything that happened after that moment. After this year and everything that's happened, have you had a second to kind of take a step back and remember that moment, reflect on your time in Detroit, just of how special that was in this young man that would essentially growing up in front of us in this last year?
You can't see it now, Natalie, but I've got goosebumps just thinking about it. I mean, just seeing what Jaden has been able to do and having gotten to know members of his entourage, if you will, and having met his mother multiple times and being out at the playoff games with them, you see where he gets it. You understand why he is just such an amazing young man. And really, the sky's the limit for our franchise now that he is here. I mean, truly, last year does not happen without him. We don't win 14 games without him. We also don't get to the record we were without Peters and Quinn, but he put the work in. And there are a lot of pundits out there now saying, well, defenses are going to adjust to him in year two. Is he going to hit the sophomore slump? And knowing the hard work he put in this year and just looking back and reflecting, he's going to work even harder because he is hungry to not just make it to that championship game, but to finally get to that last game of the season. And I cannot wait for this upcoming year.
Oh, it's going to be a good one. We'll leave it right there. Tailgate Ted, thank you so much for joining us. We always appreciate it.
Thank you, Natalie. You take care.
All right, you as well. Stay with us. We've got more Toyota Sports Talk coming up on the other side of the break.